The Americas oil region is one of the most important regions for the U.S. farmer and United States Soybean Export Council for exports. Oil exported from the United States to the Americas represents about 64% of all exports globally. The country in itself has, the region in itself has 7 of the top 10 countries that U.S. soybean oil is exported to. And if you go out throughout the year, there's a lot of times during the year that there's splashes of product going elsewhere, but this area, the Americas region, is the most consistent throughout the year. It keeps the crushers going all year round. And most of all, I always like to say that in the end, the logistics help, the extrinsic values help into the marketplace, sustainable product, a consistent supply, and looking forward into future orders and stuff like that. The last 2.5 months, the Americas region is 80 to 90% of all the future orders coming this time of year. In the region, we have been promoting in conjunction with what our customers are asking for, basically the intrinsic and extrinsic values. And by this I mean from the extrinsic side, consistent supply, just-in-time delivery, sustainability. A lot of the customers from this side now are getting into 2018 where their international customers or multinational customers are requiring sustainability certificates. Even some are now going to non-GMO oil. And so in that respect, we're promoting that and reporting the values that the U.S. soybean oil has. During the process of sustainability, we have been educating our soybean oil refiners on the sustainable certification that they can get from the United States. In Colombia, most of them are already using it, but we're still educating it in other countries in Central America so they can use it to promote and market their products in a sustainable fashion. The trends in oil, well, basically for us for the, representing the soybean farmer and the oil industry, what we have found is soybean oil is still the preferred oil, but our biggest competition comes from palm oil in certain sectors of the business, and then sometimes canola oil as well. So what we do is we keep on promoting as much as we can the intrinsic values of how the product performs better, how longer it performs. You can run it at higher temperatures, and the cleanliness, and it doesn't offer a whole different flavor, whatever the flavor is, if it's going to be fried potatoes or to a product. So we promote those intrinsic values. When we talk to the U.S. soybean farmers, what we have found is, we talk to them about, the values that I've talked about, and we also let them know about the growth factors. We have been a very consistent supply. We find the markets are growing in the region a little bit faster from an economic basis than we have in the United States. Population is growing very fast. Middle class is growing, higher than the United States levels, so it's a very good export market. In addition, I want to talk about the free trade agreement with Colombia. I've been through a lot of free trade agreements with Central America, with Mexico, with NAFTA, and NAFTA was very, very good from that standpoint, but Colombia free trade agreement has really turned around our U.S. exports of oil and their preference for U.S. oil, because before the high duties didn't allow us to compete as much with South America. Now we are competing more or better than South America can. And what this has offered is they have now had a chance to try our product, the U.S. soybean oil product. They prefer the product, especially in the manufacturing process, depending on what customer you talk to and how type of a refining factory that they have. What we have found is the value of U.S. soybean oil through a refining process, because it's not as green as some of the other products that come from our competitors, has anywhere from a $15 to $22 value per metric ton. Many times the customers come to us that have been buying or want to buy U.S. soybean oil. And one of the primary activities to address what they have asked us for is this year we've initiated the first U.S. Soybean Oil Risk Management Conference, which we had 18 of the top 23 U.S. soybean oil users in all of the Americas come to. And it was overwhelming success. If you went to the key performance indicators, if we were, had a baseline of 30 or 40% that understood some of this, and the values of soybean oil were up in the 75 to 80% range. So we listen to our customers so that we can perform programs for them. And we have, in addition to the risk management, we have a new event that we're starting for the first time. And this is called the first annual U.S. Soybean Oil Summit. In this area, what we've done is we've taken a number of our proposals that we've had this year and combined them into one event. So what we'll be covering again is a global outlook, but we're going to be covering sustainability. We're going to be covering different tracks, and in those tracks we've identified customers that we're bringing in, people from the hotel restaurant industry, distributors in the hotel restaurant industry, chefs who are influencers, and we'll have tracks on that program of showing the benefits of soybean oil, and then other tracks that we'll have, we're going to have the industry involved with setting up and working with them to find out their needs going forward so that we can help develop new proposals for fiscal 15 and FY19. And so, we find this to be really good. And in the end, we're going to wrap it up with improving the communications to our customers so that they can go through all the different supply chain lines with their customers. And that's going to be kind of fun because in the end, each one is going to end up presenting a marketing program of how to market to HRI, how to market to food service industry, and included also that will be a plant visit or a port visit in Puerto Progreso. In addition, there's going to be a unique portion of the event where we are going to have a live stream with a U.S. farmer on their field because we can talk about sustainability with our customers. We can talk about the growing processes. We can talk about the hard work that they do. But this way, they'll actually get a chance to have interaction, see on the ground what's going on in the United States with a typical soybean farm. And so we think that's going to capture their more imagination to keep on purchasing U.S. soybean oil. Relationships in Latin America are probably one of the most important things that USSEC offers to the U.S. soybean farmer. The people that we have, the boots on the ground, as they say, most of them have more than 15 years experience. So we know the customers, and there's changeover in all companies. So it's easy when there's a changeover either in management or very specific stuff for us to get back inside the door to re-educate the next generation that's coming up. What we have found is, even though we have a lot of programs, USSEC has a lot of programs to promote U.S. soybean for crush or soybean oil, we talk a lot about sustainability practices that our U.S. soybean farmers have. So in the past, we haven't brought that many people up to do this, but now this is dedicated oil people. We've brought people to the Global Trade Exchange, and now we're going to have a live feed so that they can actually interact with a farmer so they can see how the planting's done, sustainability practices, we'll be able to show them really what happens when it takes to growing soybeans. And hopefully we'll be able to put this into a context where we can have interactive questions going back and forth on this live feed. International trade basically is good globally. It's good for the United States economy. We have a very positive trade from the soybean standpoint. When you're getting over 60% of every soybean grown is being exported. And in general, that's where the growth's going to be. If you look at, the United States is a large economy, has a large population, but the population structure growing, at least in the Americas and other areas of the world, are growing much faster. So consumption will grow there, so international is very key. The opportunities of the marketplace in the Americas region, I'm going to go way out on this one. I believe Colombia should have very specific programs, because I believe in 5 to 10 years, Colombia will be the actually largest importer of U.S. soybean oil from the United States. It will surpass Mexico. It'll surpass Dominican Republic. With the free trade agreement, they're down to 7 or 8% of import duties versus the 20s from the other South American countries. But it is going to be the next big market for oil. It already is a big market for meal. It's going to be the next big market for oil. And I think Colombia needs to be on everybody's radar screen going forward. I personally believe in 5 to 10 years it will be the #1 country where U.S. soybean oil will be exported to. The last thought I have basically, and I'm talking about the Americas region and oil, I had mentioned that it's 64% of U.S. exports now and a majority of all the future orders. As of the end of July, U.S., to give you an example of the size of this market, U.S. has exported about $650 million of U.S. soybean oil, and I would expect before our fiscal year ends, it'll be over $700 million. I had mentioned before that that the Americas is 64% of all the global exports of U.S. soybean oil, and to put a monetary figure on that, in this year, in 2017, year to date, we are at about $650 million, and I expect it to go over $700 million by the end of this fiscal year, 2017.